welcome back to the Random Horror Show. I'm your horror podcast host is Keisha Lacey, and thank you for listening. And to my OG listeners that has been riding die with me since I started this rinky-dink podcast of a train wreck. Appreciate those listening ears and keep on listening. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell anybody a horror enthusiano, cinephile, anything else if they want some cheap, random, crazy, just off the wall going off on tangents, but we still speak on about horror. Welcome them all. And for those who are curious and wondering, like, what is this show? Take a listen. And I thank you. We're here at the Random Horror Show where we talk about and being silly and random and just going off tangents, but we still keep on track and to the main point of with horror, science fiction, fantasy, cult classics, and the obscure in movies, television, and books. And thank you all. And tonight's podcast is going to be It Follows. It Follows is a 2014 horror thriller, mystery, supernatural, psychological thriller. You name it, you name it. Um, this movie is one of those that it sticks in your brain. Um, I would say about like 3 years back, I was just like, It Follows. What does this mean? What is this? And so I watched it, and it was very triggering. It was jarring. It was, you know, I was just like, this movie right here just literally you had like those movies like really messed you up, like the ending of Sleepaway Camp when Angela reveals who Angela really is. It's like that type, but it just keeps going and going. um but what I like about It Follows is that it does have like some memories that I have actually dealt with around the age of Jay, around 18, 19 years old, going to college and things like that. Um, Very traumatic piece of my life at that time. Um, so I see why it stuck with me. Just not only that stuck with me, it's just the music. Also, the music in this movie is by Disaster Piece, and Disaster Piece like really, really set the tone with the music. I mean, the score. I mean, it is that pling pling, whir, you have like, if you're like, and I like the music of it because if you have, like, if you're really big into like a lot of the synth pop, like Depeche Mode, Flock of Seagulls, New Wave was really big in the 80s. I'm a big Depeche Mode fan, and hearing those notes that Disaster Piece have like conducted like in this movie, it gives you like that feel, but it's also if you're really big into the ones like Taicho, uh, I'm a big fan of Com 2's. It has that chill, laid back kind of vibe, but then it's like Disaster Piece like took some Com 2's, and then he sprinkled in some Trevor, what's his name? Oh, I know, like I forgot his name and stuff. Like Trevor something. Trevor something is another artist out there. He's a little bit raunchy with his, but it's like all that the keyboard and like the mixing and things like that, which I really really love. Um, but Disaster Piece like really he was really on point with the music throughout this movie. I mean, even the scenes of like where Jay and her friends were out there on the beach to like where she is running from her life, seeing all these people that she doesn't know, and it just keeps following her. Um, it's like a lot of people get it confused and saying like, I mean, it is part of like, the whole, you know, be careful, you're gonna get like an STD type of movie. And then people thought it was like nothing but wholly of that, but it was just more than, oh, it's the movie, the STD movie. It was also about how like this guy that she's been dating named Hugh sexually coerced her. Really, I mean, it was consensual, but if you think about what he did to pass this demon on to her, and it's a demon incarnate. We don't know the origin of this demon, how it came about. Usually, some human probably like sit there and did a whole bunch of bullshit and kind of like, like, hey, this demon like saying like, oh, look, this human has all this bullshit, all these soul ties to so many people being very promiscuous and it like manifests itself like into this sex demon, you know, uh, murderer, torturer, for human beings, you know what I'm saying? And, you have like where humans are really, have like, just different cultures, how they view sex. Some view sex as disgusting, some of it view as like, you know, carefree and things like that. I mean, everybody has like a different viewpoint on sex. But Jay really is the protagonist in this story, and she is like, she lives in the suburbs. I believe it's like out of Detroit, because one of her friends, she remarked about it was Yara. She has the glasses on. She remarked about like 8 Mile. And I have never seen 8 Mile before, the movie with Eminem. I've never seen it. I heard so many people talk about it, back when it was really, really big. And there is a real 8 Mile in Detroit, and this is like the part where this part ends of like the suburbs, and then this is where the city of Detroit begins. But Jay, she's starting off her life and everything is so carefree. It's like, I get to be in like the above, ground swimming pool, and she has these two little nosy ass like little boys like checking and staring at her. I was like, yep, that's some typical little boy shit right there. Oh man, she's cute. Oh, she gonna be my girlfriend. They're curious about her. She's in a bathing suit and stuff like that. Um, it's like it's that typical suburban thing. And then she's like, yeah, I'm in college. She's like had those dreams and aspirations, and she's just like living not life like a normal young adult teenage, older teenage, how the age thing is and stuff. But she's a young adult, but not quite like young adult, because she just graduated high school, and she's just figuring out her life, but she's just having fun. She she just imagined herself with a new boyfriend and going on dates and holding his hands and having like that the first like real that real adult kiss, not that high school shit. She's like talking about that real deal, until something terribly happens that night of where she consents to sex. And she's like, okay, um this is cool. She's like owning up her, sexuality and things like that. And sometimes, you have people that like feel that when young women are beginning, womanhood and exploring, her options, just being a sexually carefree woman, she's not, people thinks like, oh, that she's a salacious whore. No, she's not. She has the same, freeness just like men do. And there's people that have a problem with that also. But that night turns very, very traumatic and deadly for her. especially when when Hugh chloroforms her after, having, sex with her. Like I said, is very consensual. She just going on about, just, I mean, and it was just like that innocence of her. And it's not the innocence because she had sex. It's not the innocence of that, of right there where she had sex, but she just had like that really, that moment that she has, like, yes, this is all coming true. I'm enjoying this, that euphoric feeling after you have sex with somebody that you really really like and you vibe and things like that. And she was just having, she's just telling him about like her feelings, and how she was like, she was playing with the posies, and the posies right there. If y'all know about the nursery rhyme, reading around the rosies, pocket full of posies. Posies meaning, during the Black Plague, people put posies on the ones that passed away, to pay their respects and stuff. And she was just playing with these little flowers, these little posies, and he chloroforms her, and she wakes up in a wheelchair. She's strapped and bound. She's confused as hell and everything. And she is just like, what is going on? And you could just feel, you feel how Jay is feeling, especially for people that have been in situations like that when they have been sexually assaulted, people that have experienced like a kidnapping or whatever, that live to tell like, yeah, I've been kidnapped, this is what's been going on. um Jay is like helpless because how do you just just think in your mind like, how in the world did this happen? Because it's like 1 second she just got through enjoying the bliss of sex, and she really likes this guy, and that like she was just telling, just sweet things of, how she looks at life. And then all of a sudden it's just boom, you into trauma, you're bound, you're gagged, you're in danger. I mean, you go from like, it was a complete 180 right there. Even with her being chloroform, that's like how it started. It was just like, that is the day that not only her innocence, like not from the sex or whatever, it was her innocence taken away when Hugh chloroformed her. He also informs her when they're in this old abandoned building. Um, if you look at like how the comparison of this, she was in a very nice car, it's an older model car, and then they're right next to this old, building that has not been, occupied in years. The windows are busted out. I mean, it looks like it's a trap building, and she's tied up in this wheelchair. There's a lot of like symbolisms in that. You have this nice car where she had this nice moment, and then boom, she's tied up in a wheelchair, scared for her life. She don't know if she's gonna live or die. And this guy that she trusted so much, not only just with her life but her body and everything else. And then it comes to that. I mean, that is the most raw, you know that was the most rawest scene out of that movie, because you see that transition from there. And that's when he explains to her that, don't let it touch you. Do you see it? Because he was seeing it, and it was this young woman that was walking towards her, and she was just like, who is that? She's bound and gagged, and then like that shit is so, it was so confusing to her. She was so scared. But thankfully, the part about Jay is that she had a group of friends. It was Paul, Kelly, which is her sister, and Yara. They were like, they were like friends and everything. but she had this really strong group of friends. I mean, they both support each other. You know, Paul, I mean, he's always had a crush on Jay ever since whenever and everything. You know, he was like really upset. And, you know, even though he was trying kind of like, you know, it was like his feelings aside, he wanted to just like hold her and everything else, but she knew that you know, romantically wanted to be with her, but, you know, she was like, oh, we're friends, you know, whatever, and stuff like that. But she was taken to the hospital. She let the police know what was going on. And then from that scene where she was answering the questions, um, you know, the cop was asking him, was it consensual? And she's like, yes. I mean, you gotta understand she's in a state of confusion. You know, this is very, very traumatic. I mean, even Hugh just put her out in the street like a like trash or something like that, just right in front of her house like trash, and he just took on off and everything. And, you know, you like, damn, that's real fucked up of how he just discarded her like trash in front of her house. And, you know, when I like seen that scene, I was like, damn, you know, I know exactly how that feels. I know exactly how that feels to be discarded off like trash. Uh, you know, and you're confused, and, you know, you're traumatized, and you're scared, and, you know, you have like that victim's remorse going on, with, you know, with Jay. And of course, she has a neighbor named Greg. Greg has actually been crushing on her. He is around the same age as her. Now she starts seeing the the its and all that stuff that's following her. Her first like really big time of seeing this, you know, this person. It was an old lady, was when she was in class. And she was looking out the window daydreaming, and she seen the old lady in this hospital gown, and then it scared her so much she ran out of class, you know. And then she seen the same old lady like right there, you know, in the hallway, and she's like hollering hello, and there was two girls that was having a conversation in the hallway, and they said hello. They replied back, and they're just like confused, like, what is she telling us hello for? And she hauled ass. She hossed, you know, she really hossed out because now she's like, is what Hugh said to me, is this really true? That there is something that he passed down to me to get rid of it, and that is going to continue to follow me, you know. And that was the key word that he said, don't let it touch you or you will die, you know. So she was just like in this whole total nightmare because of that one night of like trusting somebody, you know, who she thought that was very trustable, you know, turns out to just really pass some bullshit on to her, and just literally wrecked her life from that. And also, um, what like I like noticed about this film is that there was like the very, very, very little technology in this movie. Um, what the director did is David Robert Mitchell. What he did is that he mixed modern and then older. You see, like the car that Hugh has, it's a 70s model car. You also see, you know, you know, like current like cars like a Kia. You see, you know, there was like an Impala. That Impala looked about 2003, 2004 right there. You also see how the neighborhood was. It was like in a mix. It was an eclectic mix of like 70s, and then you have 80s, and then you had bit of 90s and 2000. You know, just mix of different decades mixed in this movie. I mean, even the television sets that you watch, you had television sets that were, made in 90 something, in the 90s. Cause I looked, I was like, oh wow, and it's like that was like the appeal, not just only the story of this movie, but like the aesthetic appeal of this movie is what drawn me, is because it had just a really small amount, I mean a very minuscule amount of technology. And the only technology that you seen was Yara. She had this seashell. It looked like a seashell flip phone. It was cute, pretty pink seashell phone. I was like, I want that. But it like reminds you of those darn, what was those little things called? The ones like you handheld them. That was like back in the 2000, I think like 2011 and 13, 12, where you had to feed the little, it looked like a little Pokemon, and you had to water it and take it out and train it to go use the bathroom and things like that. It like reminded me the seashell this it wasn't a phone, basically. It just looked like a early cute Kindle that Yara had. Yara was also reading The Idiot, and throughout this movie, that was like her whole thing, is when she was reading she was reading a old piece of literature of The Idiot. And it had like this running theme with the movie, and I forgot like with the who wrote the book. I think it's like Tish Coffee or something like that. I can't remember. I need some coffee. I got my coffee. But she reads these passages like out of the movie. In the beginning of the movie, they was asking her what is she reading, and she said it's called The Idiot. She said it's about Paul. And Paul's character throughout this movie, he wasn't typically an idiot of like per se. He's not an idiot, but he was kind of like, he was, how would I put it, naive to things that was like, going on, until he starts getting, like knowledge, and starts get, he started getting snap about things. Um, but and then after that, when she said, she's like, I got an idea, and she farted, and I was like, that is something that me and my friends used to do in high school. That's what me and my friends used to do in high school. We used to be in class, in Mr. Likens' class, good old Mr. Likens, LL. I used to call him LL, like like LL Cool J. But I always called him Lewis also. I was like, hey, there's Lewis off the Revenge of the Nerds. He's not Lewis off the Revenge of the Nerds, but I used to call him Lewis. Isn't that crazy? I used to call my biology teacher Lewis. And he actually did had a pocket protector. And he actually had pens, red pens to be exact. So he was armed with red pens to mark any biology, chemistry, physics, microbiology paper of nothing but X's and everything. He was armed to the teeth with them red pens. He's still a bad mamma jamma. He still teaches biology. He's still a bad mamma jamma. But he's just so gross of putting ketchup on every food that he eats. Except for sweets, but he puts ketchup on everything. But but yeah, like I mean, but it was the camaraderie of like all of them, that I really enjoyed about like them, is that they turned their back on Jay. They could have like say, they could have finger pointed at her. They could have done everything to, just to like, I don't believe you. But the believable thing is that even though they couldn't see these invisible supernatural, people following Jay, which all it was just all through the movie. Um particularly the beach. When they went to the beach, there was like that scene right there. Is that when they really start seeing the night, like the real nightmare that Jay was going through. I mean, they seeing her like from the time that was going on, of how like she couldn't trust people, how much, like her mental health was decaying, and how much it was just so stressful and so much of a strain because she'd been through a sexual assault, from this guy, which actually turns out to be a fake name that he gave, and he literally was living in a house that he, was kind of being in secret about, and just keeping, himself, away from like all of these strange supernatural little ghosts, little half-ass naked and whatever they are, because they actually changed throughout the movie. um you know she was just, she was a whole mess and everything, but she had so much of a beautiful emotional and a moral support from her friends. I mean, even Paul, who had the biggest crush on her and want to get with her, he was like, this is not time for all of this and everything, you know, because Jay actually do need us, and but she gets with Greg pretty fast, and I feel like when she did that, it was not to like, oh, this guy treated me like shit, this all happened and stuff. I'm just, you know, um, getting with you just to forget and everything. And to her, like with, her and Greg being, across the street neighbors, he liked her. She kind of never noticed him. And she was just like, what, okay, cool. You know, she seen that like Greg actually liked her. She seen that like, she has to, she kind of has to build her trust up, and she seen that like, there's still some hope in humanity of trusting somebody, again, but it's gonna be slowly. Greg even taught her how to shoot. That built her confidence up instead of just being, a victim. She's a survivor, in this. And but the scene of the beach scene is that when, Greg had to go use the restroom, Yara's out there in the water, her sister's laying out, Paul is there chilling, it was all of them there. And, there was one of those supernatural things was coming up to her. And when they seen her hair get pulled up by it, literally just an invisible force pulling her hair, and she goes crazy. And that was like a really good scene out of that movie. um Paul was knocked out by the entity, because it picked up one of those lawn chairs, ooh, them old school lawn chairs and stuff, and knocked him. And he raised up his shirt when they went inside the cabin, because they were staying at Greg's cabin. It was actually his mother's cabin and stuff, to get away from everything, just to make sure, she kept seeing these entities keep coming after her, and she felt that she was going to be safe, but lo and behold, she wasn't. And she shot at it. She almost hit Greg. When it went inside the lake storage, she got the gun. That's where she started shooting. Um, she tried her best to shoot. Um, the whole door was like busted at the bottom, and then she seen like another entity, but it changes up. It was a girl that was coming on the beach and raised her hair up and everything else, and that's when all the calamity happened. But when there was inside the, in the storage, and she seen a guy, She goes and she takes off and gets into Greg's car and she wrecks it and it was on an accident. I mean, that's how like petrified she was. And her friends are like, "Holy crap, we believe her. I know we can't see these beings that's chasing her, but that was very very traumatic for like all of them to like see an invisible inevitable force like in their eyes coming after their friend. And so, she's in the hospital, and guess what? Greg was like, you know what, let's do it. If he was like, I'm willing to help you out. Pass this shit on to me. Pass it on to me. You know. And he's like, he did. He took a chance for Jay, and he was just very sad because he's seeing like everything that was just a total nightmare for her. um she's she's feeling some type of way. She's a survivor of sexual abuse, and then she's trying to survive with her life, with this entity that's coming after her. She doesn't know when. It makes her distrust like strangers, people, and everything else. And just remember, everything was just shattered, you know, after Hugh had sex with her and chloroformed her. It was just shattered. Everything was just gone to pieces. Um, they had sex, and I guess somewhere like in the between of like that and everything, I guess he felt that like he probably had to pass it on. He was looking at some girls and everything, just to see and just to test it out. um there was one night that she looked out, and guess what, it was like a guy in these white long johns. I'm like, is it cold up there? You know what I'm saying? And he breaks the window out. Jay runs over, to see about, Greg, because he was in danger. The entity turned into a woman and attacked Greg and kills him. I was like, oh my God, oh my God. That was a pretty cool scene, but golly, that scene was so damn disturbing as shit. I mean, even, the scene of Greg getting attacked and then the woman is like on top of him, and, there's no, none of them are not naked, but she's just, her boob was out, and you see this fluid of this connective fluid like coming out like of her skin, and it was like connecting with his. And we know what that means and stuff. And that was just, oh my God, I was just like, that is just disturbing right there. And she gets away, she really does. But they put a they put a plan together, and they go, off into 8 Mile, into like an abandoned school, to the swimming pool, to like electrocute the thing that's following Jay. That did not go as planned. Now, her little sister asked, like, hey, um, what does it look like? She's like, you don't want to know. So I was like, you don't want to know. So when I went back and watched the movie and stuff, there was a guy with a beard, and it could be her dad, you know what I'm saying? So I feel that this entity manifests itself to like people that they may know or they may have seen or may have passed, and it scares the shit out of them. And that did not go as well as planned. Yara got shot when Paul was shooting. But finally, she shoots the entity in the head. There was blood in the pool, even though they cannot see the blood, but she can. Um, and then, of course, after all that, her and Paul, they hooked up. And Paul was like, you know what? I'm gonna help you out. And like, all this shit, I seen everything what was going on, and he was like, I don't want nothing to happen to you. You also see Paul when he after he had sex with Jay that he was cruising and he seen some sex workers. So we have like that vagueness of like did he pass it on to one of the sex workers that was on the corner? And after that, when it's just ending of Jay and Paul like actually together throughout this whole traumatic nightmare that Jay and her friends have like endured, there was somebody walking behind them. So like it follows, and what's the end? So what do you think about It Follows? Do you feel that with all due to respect of like how this film put together, do you feel that this movie was really about all about STDs or sexual transmitted diseases and infections? Maybe part of it, but do you feel it was mostly of somebody living a freaking nightmare of everything that's so unmanageable of like how cruel the world is, and it's when that reality hits, especially with Jay, of her situation, of how reality hits so differently with so many different young adults. Young adults are they always, and I'm just gonna share your story and stuff. um I felt that way also. How when you get 18, you graduate high school, you're going off to college, and you have like that hope and that promise. And it's not, and you don't be, and in 18 and 19, you have all that hope and that promise and that optimism. You feel that like, yeah, from I've transitioned from high school now into college. I'm becoming this young adult. I'm going to have, take off for Europe, take off. I mean, I had that too. Like, I'm finna move to London, fuck everybody in Texas, but I'm gonna go on this band scholarship and things like that. And when I got to college, and I had so much fun, and it was a guy there that, you know, um, he he had parties and things like that. And I partied. Yes, I was underage drinking and stuff. He was around 21. He was a little bit older, and I mean, and he had like that nice guy, vibe with him. And then, I got a little drunk because, like I knew I've been drunk before, underage drinking. I've been out to pastor parties and everything else, so I know all about that. And it was that one night I actually did pass out. There was like twice that I've been to his house and drink and yada yada, and it was off campus. I lived on campus at the time at the dorms, and I woke up and he's on top of me, and I'm just like, this is not consensual. I did not consent to this. I was completely butt naked, and you know how the story goes. Um, it it literally messed me up because now I'm afraid that like he could have gave me something. I had to get myself checked out. I had to be very sly with it, um, because the stigma of a lot of things of like even still to this day and age is that like, oh, girl partied, she got drunk, and they think that like, she's drunk, and oh well, I can take advantage of her. And I was literally taken advantage of. And it was very, very tough on me to like go to classes. It was real tough on me uh to like tell my mother at the time because um it's a little different cultural wise because you do have like those that do victim blaming. Well, if you didn't go over there and get drunk and stuff like that, that wouldn't happen because that's your fault. And I knew that was coming. I knew if I told people, they would say I'm lying because this guy was very, uh, very known on campus. He was pretty popular with people. I'm just a freshman. He's been there for like 2 years. He was 21. They looked to this guy like some type of like, God or something like that. And and I was just like, man, I can't. It was so horrible on me. It was so horrible, and I had to keep that secret um with me for a long time. Except it was this guy. He was a clarinet player. His name is Tim. Last time I heard about him, he was a preacher in Florida. I think about him every time and stuff. He was that person that I told. Um, and he looked like David Gahan. Like, remember David Gahan from Depeche Mode when he had the long hair? He had similar features of David Gahan. And I told him, and he was the only person that I told at that time about what all happened. And he comforted me and things like that, and he let me know that this is not this guy's first time of doing that. He had a girlfriend at the time. She was real nice. Her name was Joanne. you know hey, it's been a long time. And he did the same thing to his girlfriend when she was a freshman. um all of that. She was very afraid to like speak up about it and say anything to anybody. She started cutting. She was very suicidal, and then she turned her life to Christ, and they became boyfriend and girlfriend, and everything else. And that like really, really, I was just like, so he's just predatory. That guy is predatory. And she knew like how much this loser ass dude like had so much power of like making her out a lot. And she went through a whole bunch of stuff. Same with me. I went through a whole bunch of things. I was so glad that he was there for me, and he understood. um and me and her, we became good friends. And during when I went to college, because that has happened to her. There was no type of like victims advocacy or anything else like that on our campus. um they couldn't do anything because he actually lived like a street away from the campus of where he lived. And so they couldn't do nothing about it, like campus cops or anything, because that was like kind of like out of their jurisdiction. And you know it's things like that. He's so disgusting. And I don't know. He probably have done a whole bunch of other freshman girls like that, that was entering in campus, of doing things like that, and they just was too afraid to speak out because of like the backlash and the victim blaming and things like that. But I'm very glad that like she trusted Tim to like tell that about herself. And then I'm glad she found Christ and everything to like help her out like with that situation. But and then of course like me, being friends with Tim and stuff like that. And we're me and her sharing our stories and stuff together. um it was a great comfort, that really, that emotional support that that all of us like had for each other. Even though I was a saxophone player, they were both clarinet players. And I was very, very alone, and I know she was very, very alone, especially with that happening, to her. And it's sad. It's really, really sad. And and to me, like, the last time that this guy, his name is Jonathan, by the way, and he was with this girl. I don't know. I heard they became girlfriend and boyfriend or something like that. And we all hung out with each other, but I was more like, every time I see him, I, tip away, kind of walk away, just to get out of his sight. And, I was ill to my stomach. But like I did fail out the first semester. I started cutting. I started, looking for anything to like numb the pain. Um, because I didn't have that emotional support system like I did with Tim and Joanne. And I couldn't just, I just couldn't just tell my family because I know it's going to be a whole bunch of questions, and it's not going to be, oh my God, are you okay? I'm just very sorry, who's this bastard and everything. I mean, you do get scared of stuff like that. And I think you need to, like, when people tell you things like that, I mean, you actually do need to, like, just, be very caring and have a lot of empathy, like Jay's friends did, even though they could not see the entities that Jay was seeing. Um, it's the fact that what they seen, her being dumped down in the street, them investigating. I mean, even the scene of when they actually caught him, and talk to him. I mean, Greg was like very upset, and he was ready to beat his ass and everything. The scene, and all she just did was just kept her head down, and she was just picking the blades of grass and just laying it on her thigh. She was, I mean, you could see the emotions that she just shut down, but she was angry, she was sad. Um, like, how can you do something like this to me? You know, I didn't ask for that, and she didn't. She did not ask for none of that bullshit. And you can, and that's like a thing about when, young women, I mean, college, it doesn't matter, coworker, whatever, being sexually assaulted, we go through those questions in our head, like, why does it have to be me? What did I do wrong? We have like that, that guilt right there, like, what can I do? What could have I done? You know, why you have so many questions like that. And it is hell. It's really hell. And even though, like, how everything was just top turvy shit all through this movie, her friends still had their humanity and, and compassion and empathy. They were like, they still like had that. It changed them, but um they still had that in their, they still had that. And there's people that, if they go through something, traumatic, or something that was a shitty part of their life, a lot of times they have things that change. They could get a little bit meaner, they could be a little bit more apathetic, they can be a lot cruel and cold. But Jay and her friends um remained as much as empathetic throughout the movie. They did. And another thing, before I go ahead and wrap this up, is that the whole thing of death. Everybody knows that death is part of a life cycle. Um, you can't run away from it. It's just gonna be there. And that was one of the things that it was pointing out. I mean, even though Hugh said, "Hey, don't let it touch you because you will die." And what if like Jade let it touch her and she died? I mean, even at the end of the movie and you thought it was over with, you see somebody walking behind him. Um, Even in the beginning of the movie, you see the young woman that was like in the same neighborhood as Jay. She's running away. I mean, she didn't even put on no kind of clothes. She just had them red pumps and looked like she was about to get ready for church, and she just kept on going. And then, she died on the beach, with her leg broken up. Oh, that was gruesome right there. That was a very gruesome death for her. Um, it's just it was that right there in it, in the beginning of the movie of when we seen the young woman before this happened to Jay, that she couldn't even get away from it. It didn't even matter where she went to, where she hid, or anything. It's still going to get you, and that's death. It's going to get you, no matter how much sage and hookah spells and calling on the spirits, the four corners of the wind and shit like that. Death is always going to be there. And a lot of people don't accept death. They're so afraid to die and things like that. And, people need to accept that death is part of the life cycle of life. Um, I'm dealing with something at the moment with my grandmother, which I already made peace with. And for me, it's me to spend as much quality time with her before she transitions. Because, I mean, earlier today, and I was sitting there talking to her, she was beckoning somebody, and I called off people that she may see that she's beckoning to come. Um, she kind of screwed her face up and everything. She can't talk. She had a stroke. I don't know. I can't see them. I said, you gotta tell me or you gotta touch me to like for it to materialize in my brain so I can actually know who is there. And she's beckoning them. She's beckoning them to come. It's close to that time. It really is. It's very close to that time for my grandmother. And I still talk to her. I still, care for her on the weekends, what she needs, but I know that it's very close to her time, and I'm going to spend as much time as I possibly can before, death comes. And she was probably beckoning death to come over and talk to her. You never know. Some strange, mysterious shit in the world. It really is some strange, mysterious things in the world. And I wish she could say or talk or speak or mutter or write it down of what she's seen. But that's usually the signs right there when it's getting very close. And, I cherish my grandmother all my life. She's 87. Um, she's still holding on and everything, but I feel like she's having a meeting. She's having a meeting with some people that, you know, has passed on. And she's not hallucinating. She isn't. My grandmother is not, she's very coherent. She knows what's going on. But when I seen her beckoning, I knew that they're speaking. They're speaking. They're speaking to my grandmother. And she's welcoming them in. And like I said, I already made my peace with that. And she lived a really wonderful life. And, you know, I'm just going to enjoy her as much as I can. And usually when you have death, um, you have rebirth. So it's part of the cycle, and there's no need for people um, to be afraid of it, to have a fear of it. So that's enough of my time, and lovely, lovely people, thank you for listening to the Random Horror Show with tonight's podcast. It follows. Um, this movie right here, I'm telling you, it's one of those that stick in your head. Um, it may be a little bit confusing with some of the parts in the movie, but I really do enjoy it. I know they made a sequel to it. I have not really haven't watched it. I don't know if it's going to be good or if it's going to be better than the first movie. I take a dive in it and everything just to see how it goes. Um, if it follows, actually does better than the first one, I may review it. If it's not, I'm still gonna review it and probably be short, to the sweet, to the point, and say like it sucks. Well, all right, y'all take care and y'all stay awesome and cool. Keep it classy and trashy. This is Keisha Lacey with the Random Horror Show. Y'all have a good night.